to close out this show, a take for 99 cents, where we give you a very expensive take for a very cheap price. And, I'm ready to bring us home, Zach. So, you could go ahead. You could go first and bring us home first, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, well, so you briefly hinted about on this earlier when we were talking about the Jets and them beating the Rams in that pointless game a couple years ago. And my take for 99 is going to harp on that. I think it is impossible to tank in the NFL. And we've seen a lot of reasons why throughout the course of the last couple of years. I just feel like every time we have a team that we say, oh, it's obvious, they're just going to lose every game and they're going to get the number one pick, and that's the last we hear from them. No, the NFL is built for you not to tank. And it's pretty simple, right? Like, the owner could want to tank. You could have Stephen Ross paying Brian Flores to intentionally lose games like he did. But the bottom line is you have players suiting up for your team that just don't know where they're going to be playing next year. And their goal when they get there on the field is to put the best film out there possible so other GMs and other teams are going to want them. So I just feel like I've seen so many different examples between the tank for Tua Dolphins, the Jets a couple years ago when everyone thought they were going to be get the number one pick. Even this year, the Giants. I didn't think there was any chance in hell that Tommy DeVito was going to be able to win them a game. I thought, if the Giants want to guarantee themselves at Caleb Williams, just send Tyrod Taylor to the Bahamas for the rest of the season. Don't even let him in the building. Just start Tommy DeVito, and that is a guaranteed ticket to the number one pick. Nope. The next game, he just torches Washington, and now the Giants are not in a great position to get the number one pick. So I just feel like it's very easy to say, just tank. That's the best thing to do going forward. Look at the Vikings. We thought they were cooked, especially after Kirk Cousins got hurt. But all of a sudden, they're here and they're about to make the playoffs. So I just feel like the NFL, and this is a great thing for the league because it's very intriguing. It provides a lot of theater. Even the games between like two meaningless teams. You remember last year the Texans and the Colts played that meaningless game, and Davis Mills led them that crazy drive down the field. He converted like 3 different 4th and longs, and everyone was saying like, what are the Texans doing? They just had a clear path to the number one pick, and they didn't even get it, and still couldn't have worked out better for them at the quarterback position. So I just think when it comes to draft order and tanking and getting the right quarterback, a lot of it is luck. There's nothing you could really do to guarantee it. And a lot of other leagues have this problem that the NFL doesn't. It is built for you not to tank. And I think if the NBA was like that, they wouldn't need a draft lottery. There's a reason why the NFL doesn't, because it's really hard to put yourself in that position to get that first pick. So the NFL is tank proof. And I think that is a good thing for the league.
Yeah, that's a very creative take. I love the creativeness about it. And I think it's a very good conversation to have when you look around the league. You're always trying to chase that great player if you're not in a position to compete for a championship. I'm always of the mindset, and it really tampers with my mindset, right? Because I'm the guy that I always love to have a sense of direction. I either want to be winning a championship or competing for one, or gearing up to the future. I never want to be in the middle. I never want to be a team that I know there's a cap on where I could go and I'm stuck. And I think when you look at the Vikings, they're stuck. It's funny, stick around. The Vikings are stuck. Other teams are stuck. The Saints were stuck when they lost Drew Brees. The Steelers were stuck when they lost Ben Roethlisberger. It actually in lines and with a lot of stuff that I talked about in the past. But I would say this though, and I think you're right. I think you're right to an extent, because they're all jobs on the line. Players got to eat. Players want that new contract. Coaches' jobs on the line. Sometimes they're not a handshake deal that allows the coach to willingly tank, knowing that he's going to keep his job, and he wants to win. I get those points. But I do think that in some ways that it's hard to tank a long season. Right, it's hard. Like with the Cardinals, you got Kyler Murray back. We try to wait him out as long as possible. Look at him right now, how good he's playing. He probably could have came back 3-4 weeks ago, with all due respect. But they want to wait it out as much as possible. Now he's gonna come back, and now he's gonna ruin some things. We're already 1-1 with him. But I also do think that when you think about one example in particular, a couple years ago, Sunday Night Football, the Eagles. I think they played the Giants or somebody else. And Doug Peterson took out his players. He had to take out his players in order for him to tank, and he lost his job. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen again. But I do think if there's a game, one game, like at the end of the year where you could take, because the Texans that you're referencing, they could have took out Davis Mills. They could have shut it down like, we're going to lose this game and tank, like how Doug Peterson did. But they opted to go with the flow, and that's why they cost them the pick and all that. But I do think in a game situation where it's 2 teams or 3 teams that could get that number 1 pick and it comes down to one game, that you could take out your plays and try to tank and get that pick. But it's hard to tank a full season, and that's why the NFL is king.
But and that's a good point. I will say, though, like, the Eagles, I don't, like, why did they even do that? It's not like they were going to get the number 1 pick. I guess they just wanted to improve their draft stock, but like even if you bench those guys, like the guys you're putting out there are still going to be trying their absolute best. And again, like, did you think there was any shot the Giants were winning on Sunday and going into Washington, getting the dub, and Tommy DeVito was going to throw 3 touchdowns? Like, he was sacked 9 times and they still won comfortably. Like, he was sacked 5 times in the first quarter and was still putting up all these points. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Absolutely, I agree. That's a good take. That's a very good take. On the take that I have to try to match that, right? And I think I could do a good job of closing some distance here to match that good take. Is my take for 99 is that when you look at the Vikings, right? They're going to face a very tough offseason. They may have the toughest offseason of all teams in the league, in regards to what do they do at quarterback going forward. But my take for 99 is that the Vikings need to bring back Joshua Dobbs and Kirk Cousins, okay, on 1 to 2 year prove-it deals, okay? I think they need to make this hard question easier. Bring them both back. The reason why I bring that up, right, is because they didn't do that in 2017. Remember when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt in 2016, and then he came back, in the other year, and then they had Sam who went down in week 1, then they had Casey Keenum, who led them to the NFC Championship game, and they had the same question back then. Do we bring back Case Keenum? Do we bring back Teddy Bridgewater? Who do we bring back? And guess what? They didn't bring back nobody. They signed Kirk Cousins to an $84 million deal when they could have bought those 2 quarterbacks back and had 2 quarterbacks for the price of 1. Okay? For the price of 1, they could have had 2 quarterbacks, and they paid Kirk Cousins $84 million. Okay? I think they need to learn from that. Okay? They need to bring back both Joshua Dobbs and Kirk Cousins. Okay? Because what the NFL has shown us over the last couple of years, especially when you look at the NFC Championship game, is the value of having a backup quarterback. It's so much more valuable than what people are giving credit for. And the Browns should have learned that when they knew that Deshaun Watson was battling a shoulder injury throughout the year. They should have had Joshua Dobbs on the roster behind Deshaun Watson. They failed to have a backup plan. Yeah, they traded Joshua Dobbs early in the season for sunflower seeds for a 5th round pick. Okay, we don't need you. Go ahead, we'll take a 5th round pick and all that. And instead, now they're suffering the consequences because they don't have a Joshua Dobbs on their roster that they can go forward with. And now their season is practically over. That don't need to happen for the Vikings. They're gonna have Kirk Cousins coming back from an Achilles injury, bro. Like, let's be realistic. I understand that Kirk Cousins has been a very good player and arguably has played his best football the last 2 years under Kevin O'Connell. And that's evident, right? But he's coming back from an injury. Need to give him time to heal. Why not bring back Joshua Dobbs as well on a 1-year deal and let him back up Kirk Cousins or start, or however I want to navigate this storm? I think that makes sense to me, because one thing that Joshua Dobbs does that Kirk Cousins don't do is give you that out of structure ability, where his ability to scramble, where his ability to be a force in the red zone. He scored a couple touchdowns in the red zone with his ability to get out of danger. But he does play a little bit reckless. He does put the ball in harm's way. He threw an interception in the game against the Broncos, had a fumble loss against the Broncos. However, we know that he brings you some magical moments, but there's a cap. With Kirk Cousins, as good as he's played, there's a cap. We don't need to make this conversation as hard as we did in 2017. It could be very easy. What could be the hardest question to make could be the easiest question to make. Bring both of these quarterbacks back on 1 to 2 year deals and go from there. And that's my take for 99 cents.
So I like the idea. My only issue is I just think they're going to have to pick one, because I think another team would be willing to give whoever they let go more money. Like, I just think the quarterback play around the league is so poor right now that even coming off an Achilles, like I think Kirk Cousins might get like 30 mil, like north of, and Josh Dobbs might get like 10 to 15, especially if he keeps this up. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to afford to keep both guys. Like I think both guys could be making a lot of money. Both of them are free agents. And honestly, man, like I know they lost on Sunday, but if Josh Dobbs keeps this up, like I think he's a starter. And like I think other teams around the league are going to view him like that. I could see a QB needy team overpaying for him. He's a great locker room guy. I think he's proved himself this year, and I just think they're going to have to pick one. Like I like the idea, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to afford it.
I get what you're saying. That's a very good point. Maybe Josh Dobbs has some suitors in the offseason, and I think his performance going down a stretch will determine that and how he looks, and if the Vikings are able to make the playoffs and whatnot. But I do think that you can re-sign him to a 2-year deal, give him some money as a backup. Obviously, you don't want to overpay him. Maybe it will be like a Jimmy Garoppolo situation where, remember when Jimmy Garoppolo got a good lucrative contract, but he was a backup. Maybe you have to do it like that, like what Kyle Shanahan did. You have to be creative, bro, because I do think that going all out with Kirk Cousins going forward is just not the smart play to make.
Yeah,
now,
I would let him walk, bro. Like honestly,
and if you let him walk, we have to be realistic as well on the other side with our, ceiling when it comes to Joshua Dobbs. Like, is he this diamond in the rough, or is he a magical guy for a magical moment, like a Minshew mania, like a Linsanity? Like, is he one of those guys? We don't know that. So I think there's a lot of, unknown, and I think the way how you navigate through that is by trying your best to bring both of those guys back. Now, if there's some suitors, maybe you want to go the Kyle Shanahan route and what he did with Jimmy Garoppolo to bring him back to be a backup to Trey Lance when they paid Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe you want to do that with Joshua Dobbs as well. Who knows? It's a tough question. It's a tough position, but I think they can make it easier for themselves.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.